If mindfulness is the practice, awareness is the goal. Welcome to session number 5 of PreZense. Today we're going to dig into the state of being, which is awareness. And we've used the last 5 presentations to lay the foundation for getting here. The only challenge you're going to face in life is going to be your mind. You could distill every other challenge you have down to the way you think, react, respond, and interface with your own mind. And so that's why we're spending so much time on this. As Napoleon Hill, who was one of my earliest books that I read from, was Napoleon Hill said once, you either control your mind or it controls you. I don't think I've seen a truer statement around the mind than that one. And I would guess from seeing, I wouldn't guess, numerous very smart people have mentioned that they think that 99% of the population is controlled instead of controlling by their mind. They're controlled. And the idea of awareness is to get us to a place where we're no longer controlled. We're back to that rightful ownership, that sovereign control or management of our own minds. So the lone trial is to transcend the mind, because within it dwell both friend and foe. Here gods and demons arise, and here all your grasping and resisting takes root. And everything you try to keep that might go away, and everything you try to push away that might come to you, creates unhappiness, creates an unsettled nature. If you try to hold on to the good things, you're going to be disappointed. If you try to keep the bad things out of your life, you're not going to be able to do it. So why don't you sit with reality as it is and accept it as it is? And here, these unhelpful thoughts and patterns of understanding pervade. So, as we've gotten to this point, we've talked about what do you do about it? What do you do about it? Anybody? How do you become the master of your mind? Practice. And what are you practicing? Mindfulness. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it. The goal is to step back and let your mind run and be the witness. Don't be caught up in the thoughts and the machinations. Don't get entangled in the scene, but rise above it. Rise above it. So this brings me to the first question. How are your mindfulness practices going? Has anyone practiced at all? Has anyone done at least one mindfulness practice? Woo, excellent. Anyone done 2? Anyone done 5? That'd be a whole work week worth. Okay, tell me what kind of practices are you doing, because there's a wide range of them. Anybody who raised their hand want to share which ones they're working on with?
I don't know if this is really mindfulness, but I kept concentrating on this card that was in front of me.
Okay. Right, okay. And that was to shut down, to come back to a point of reference until another thought came, and then you would focus on the car?
Yes.
Yes, so that's a form of meditation. So perfect. Excellent. And you had your eyes open, which is my favorite if you're going to do it when you're driving. Any other practices?
When the thought comes in, I identify it, and then...
I sometimes like to identify them, because if I categorize them, then I can sort of get rid of them easier instead of let them be abstract. So yeah, that's really good. Anyone else? Yeah. We're talking, yeah, your experience in mindfulness is in practice.
Well, I teach mindfulness to kids, but then I find that the things that I teach them are actually really helpful too. So finding your favorite color, find something that is your favorite color, looking around and finding the colors of the rainbow and things like that.
Right, because it can shut down the noise in people's heads. Right, there's a bunch of different, well, good, that's fantastic. Keep up your practices. I think that I know it'll make a difference for you. This material, as a disclaimer, takes time. The reason I'm saying the same thing over and over again from different directions over the entire 8 sessions is because it'll take a while to get it. So if you walk out of here and you feel like I need to watch that again, or I didn't really fully understand that, then that's just normal. I have the advantage of working with some of this stuff for 20 plus years. So I've had a longer time to digest it. So don't feel like I'm throwing it all at you so you can see it, because I think sometimes having that structure helps you then understand how you're a victim, and I want to get you to a place where you're back in control. And so sometimes that requires a little bit shake and bake a little bit, but we get there. So hence the reason we do it this way. Keep practicing. Unbidden, a quiet calm will come. Has anyone yet had the experience when they're out somewhere not practicing, where your practice kicks in? It's wonderful. You'll be somewhere and you'll catch yourself watching the thought when you're somewhere else and you're not practicing. Once that starts to happen, you'll find that a quiet calm starts to come. You'll know. This is the presence, I'll go boldly say, this is the presence of God in you. This is stillness. This is peace. And this is life's greatest obstacle, to move past our minds. So there is a verse in Ephesians 6:12, which I love. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to tell you to think about one thing differently, and I'm going to reread it to you. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against cosmic powers over present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Jesus told us the kingdom of heaven is within us. Now reread the verse, understand the kingdom of heaven is within you. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and the authorities and the cosmic powers in the present darkness in our minds, against the spiritual forces of evil in our thinking. Changes the whole flow of that sentence. And yet it's directly interpretable that way. For the battle doesn't take place in the world. The battle really is taking place inside your mind, your thoughts, and your beliefs. Hence the entire creation of this seminar. Because we have this labyrinth we have to go through in our minds. And we have this spiritual darkness. And before the session started, we were talking about Carl Jung. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung because I find it to be accurate. Until you make the subconscious or the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It's one of his most famous quotes. And it comes from, and from this came the entire work of psychology called shadow work. Who here is familiar with shadow theory? Anybody else? A couple folks? I know Peter is. Yeah. So anyone want to tell me what shadow theory is? Best of their ability? Go ahead.
It's a process of exploring and integrating things that have been laying in the darkness for many years, and we've built walls around to protect you from your fears.
Yeah. You want to teach this section? Because that was perfect. That was good. So to recap what he said is, it's parts of yourself that have protected you that you're trying to keep hidden, is the short version of that. I like to use a bus metaphor. These are the unwanted shadows, are the unwanted parts of ourselves that ride on the bus of us, and they sit behind us. They're the things that we can control when we try to control them, but the minute we stop trying to control them, they take over. Anger, selfishness, greed, desire. You could go any of the major sins, and they're going to be the ones, as well as dozens of other things. Anything can be in shadow. Why do we have it in shadow? Well, we have it in shadow because we don't want other people to see it. But the problem with it being in shadow is it tries to do things to us that are not helpful. So these guests in the back of your bus, these shadows, these parts of your mind you don't know about or you don't recognize, you've shoved them in the back of the bus. And the reason you have them back of the bus is you don't want anyone to know about them, and you don't want them in your life. But the problem is they're always reaching around that curtain you put in the back of the bus to grab the steering wheel. And when can they most easily grab the steering wheel? They can most easily do it when you're distracted. So you can control your anger until all of a sudden a whole bunch of things happen, and now you forget to put effort against anger, and that shadow reaches around, grabs the wheel, and takes your bus into the ditch. That's the challenge. And we keep these hidden for a reason. The world doesn't accept these. So we don't want others to see them. And often, just as often, maybe even more often, we're not even aware they're there. And they're sabotaging our lives. And it's why you have the same failures over and over again. You get in the same dysfunctional situations again and again. Relationships, the same arguments. These are all shadow-based. This is a very powerful and well-vetted area of psychology. And the problem is that you can't use effort to get these guys to stay in the back of the bus. You can build a stronger curtain, but when you're not paying attention, they're going to get back and grab your steering wheel. So what do you do about it? If you can't do it by force, how do you deal with shadow? Yeah, you look it in the eye. I love that. I would have used that had I thought of it for the next slide. You look it in the eye. You change by understanding. There are two types of change. The world uses this forced change, don't eat, stay on a diet. They do this sort of thing, and then when you do it long enough, it becomes a habit. That is one way to change. Does anyone know there's an entirely much easier way to change? See how your current behavior hurts you, see what you could do instead, and just keep looking at that until one day you decide you're just not going to do it anymore. That change tends to be permanent. So what we're talking about is understanding as being a form of change. It's a much more powerful way to change, and it's much more likely to be permanent. So Marcel Proust once said, habit is second nature that keeps us from knowing the first. Our habitual lives keep us from knowing what else we really are. And shadows, just like many of the things in our subconscious, keep us from knowing our spirit selves, because we get so wrapped up in our mind selves and our ego selves, our worldly selves. So the psyche includes known and unknown parts. Now these can be positive too. You can have positive things, like we've talked about in ego, that support you, like self-control and discipline, and there's aspects of that. The rule of thumb is 80-20. 80% of your psyche and your thoughts will be negative. They believe that's, there's some theories that was for human survival, but it doesn't serve us nearly as much today. So shadows become a place to do work. And here, our wounds, our fears, our unlived lives sit. Just a moment on unlived lives. Does anyone know someone in the world that they just are always impressed by them? Think of someone in your life who you're just always impressed by, or someone you've known over the years and you wished you were more like them, or way they lived just inspired you. That is a shadow, but it's a golden shadow. It's referred to as golden shadow because it's a part of yourself that you have those same skills and those same interests and those same abilities, you just have never honored them or let yourself develop them. So if you ever run into that, stop and make a note, because those are parts of yourself calling out to be heard and seen in a good way. Hence, golden shadows. But let's go back to the more pervasive kind of shadows. The parts of you that are unrecognized, unseen, or dishonored. And the problem is, this is like a crying child. Your shadows don't go away. They will not be ignored. They'll just keep crying. And they are willing to sabotage every area of your life. So you take away a shadow's power by making it known. They're always speaking to us. We have to slow down and listen. And the way you do that, he gave us some steps in the prior video. You trace your reactions. You watch for feelings of angst and discomfort. You learn what things trigger you, and you start to figure out why, where they come from. You look at the patterns that show up again and again, what desires you have and where those might come from. And once known, your shadows are much less able to control you from the dark. So I want you to think of a behavior that you don't like in other people. This should not be hard. I want everyone to write down, for your own use, not for sharing, a behavior that you don't like in other people. Everyone got one? How might this behavior serve that other person? Often, almost always, they're fear-based. Yeah, protect themselves. What else? How might the behavior you wrote down serve the other person?
Make themselves feel better.
Right. Raise their sense of self, which again is all ego-based, right? Others?
Distance themselves.
Right. Reduce responsibility. Right. These are all behaviors we don't like in other people. Now, I want you to look at the one you wrote down, and I want to ask you, why might your noticing this be important? You noticed that behavior. It's been bugging you. You wrote it down.
Very angry.
Yeah, right.
It's important to you.
because it's important to you. So when you buy a yellow car, you see yellow cars everywhere. The reason this behavior is particularly important to you is because it's a behavior that you've noticed about yourself. Even if you haven't consciously noticed, almost always it's a part of you that you don't like. And you've done a good job hiding it in the back of the bus, and other people aren't doing a good job hiding theirs, and you don't like it. You don't like it. You need to do a better job of hiding the thing that I've been hiding for years. How dare you? Welcome to shadow theory. And that is the insight. So every time we're angry at somebody else, we have an opportunity to learn about ourselves. It's a beautiful, reflective onion, and you're gonna have lots of layers. And every time you pull away a layer and you see yourself in that other person, you grow compassionate and you grow less proud because you're flawed too. And that cycle of becoming more compassionate and less self is the spirit walk in every religion, every major one. Powerful place to go. And this creates something profound. When we talked earlier about, will you have a little bit more peace? Have you found that quiet? Well, as that starts to show up, something else is going to happen at exactly the same time. You're going to grow in spaciousness. And this is an amazing feeling. Think of your mind as a warehouse. Right now it's full of cobwebs and critters running around, and it's kind of running the show. Over time, it's going to grow from this small space inside your head full of cobwebs to this entire room or entire coliseum of space. Why is that important? Because the wisest people I know make room for all of themselves. And if you're going to take shadow out of the picture, you got to make room for shadow too. I'll explain it. It'll make sense in a second. Tara Brach said, we don't have to wait until we're on our deathbed to realize what a waste of our precious lives it is to carry the belief that something is wrong with us. This is the argument that every dark part of yourself did what for you? Yeah, the things you guys just said. It kept me safe, it provided me distance, all those things you just said, that's what shadows do. They're not bad inherently, there might be better behaviors to get you there, but they were the ones you used when you were 5 and 7, and they worked-ish, and you didn't have time to optimize because you weren't even realizing you were using them. So back to spaciousness. Awareness creates an enormous, peaceful, quiet landscape inside of you. And this is super important because it lets all the parts of you coexist. Shadows theory, most important thing about it is that you don't try to kick out those shadows anymore. You make room for things despite all the contradictions and unacceptability. So everyone in this room has creativity. Everyone in this room has laziness. You make room for it. You make room for what's dignified and what's shameful in your life. You make room for what's glorious and divine and beautiful, as well as what's ridiculous and petty and weird. And you stop stuffing them in the back of the bus. And once you do that, it's really interesting what happens. They don't reach out and grab the wheel anymore. Because what you've done is you can't kick any part out, but you can give them a seat at the table, and you can hear them out. And you can thank them for their service. But you don't have to let them control your story anymore. As you practice mindfulness, this is a very powerful area of mindfulness, shadow work. And this is one of those things, another way. So, Russ, why are you talking about last week you talked about ego, this week you're talking about shadow? Yeah, because I keep giving you other ways to look at the same piece where we're trying to expand how much consciousness we have and we're trying to improve the quality of the subconsciousness. And we're going to keep coming back to this different ways, because every time we slice this a different way, we're giving you another set of tools to become present, to be in this moment, to be still, to not be a victim of the noise. The noise, noise, noise. It's not a good way to live, and you can get to a better place. So this acceptance of yourself creates peace. Endarkenment. I don't know if that's a real word, but we wrote it on a slide. Spell checker, I don't remember if spell checker yelled at me or not. you're in God's way. So if I'm saying things a different way, but they're similar to what I've said before for the fourth or fifth time, I'm making a point. Ajahn Chah once said, if you let go a little, you'll find a little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll find a lot of peace. And if you let go absolutely, you will find absolute peace and tranquility. God is love, peace, joy, and abundance. If you don't have that, it's because God isn't showing out in your life. Most likely because you've asked him not to, indirectly or directly. And the mind's machinations are like clouds. What do we say the clouds keep out? Sunshine. So the more thoughts and ideations you have, the less light, the less warmth, and the less clarity you have, because you can't, not only can you not predict the storms that are going on, but you can't clearly see in the darkness. So you make suboptimal decisions, or you find yourself in patterns that don't work for you, or you repeat the same mistakes. It's all the same thing. You can't get rid of the mind, but you certainly can master it. You can see through it. There is no self. You're not your identity. We've covered this prior. You're not your body. You can't control its aging process, so clearly it's not you. You're not the roles you play. You'd still be you without those roles. You're not the titles people bestow to you. You're not the things you own. You're not the identity you created for yourself. You are not your thoughts. What are you? What are you? Anybody. Any word will do. What are you? Your awareness. When I said I cut this a couple different ways, this might be helpful to look at it this way. So I did some research, and it looks like when you looked at our thoughts for ego-based, me-based thoughts, they're between 50 and 70%. So if I wanted to flag out ego, I might do something like this. These would be ego-based thoughts. Right? So the remainder would be not me thoughts, but thoughts about life. So we'll call them worldly thoughts, for lack of a better term. So another way to split this would be to split it as worldly. So last week, this is what we did. This week, when we talk about shadow, we just cut the pie another way. Shadow are usually things we don't know about consciously, so it would be the bottom half. And shadow is big. It's a big portion of what you would see in this type of graph. So this would be shadow. It doesn't matter which way you go after the noise in your head. It matters, ideally, if you have a nice toolkit. So you got a screwdriver for these kind of problems, and you got a wrench for these kind of problems, and you got a hammer for these kind of problems. If you create in your mind a way of catching those as categories, you can lean into them in different ways, all just to awaken. If you imagine all psychology is about how thinking works, and you look at all the theories psychologists produce, then they're always going to cut slices of that pie out based on whatever theory you're talking about. And these are just some of the best ones for waking up. So the kingdom of heaven is within. So this is a quote. Asked when the kingdom of heaven would come, Jesus answered, "The holy nation of God is not coming in such a way as it can be seen with eyes. It will not be said, 'See, here it is,' or 'There it is,' for the holy nation of God is within you." Luke 17:21, multiple translations. Wow. So heaven's not exclusively about dying and leaving earth. It's about transcending the ego and the world. We are here to bring heaven here on earth. We're to walk in the presence of God and embody him in our lives. And this is the great separation looked at a different way. The Bible talks about you'll have one person left and one person standing. One person will see and one person won't. That's also a separation that lines up perfectly with awareness. Or there'll be a falling away by those who are worldly and self-centered and asleep, and their lives will be hell-ish. And all of us get to experience a little of that now, which is kind of why sometimes our lives feel a little hellish. Because we're asleep. Luke 6:38. Give and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, it will be poured into your lap. We're promised an overflowing and abundant life. That's how you get it. Because at the other end of this, you're going to realize a lot of stuff you think you want to make you happy didn't matter. And then you're going to start running the things that do matter, and wow, they make you really happy. Anyone ever bumped into somebody or seen them in media that basically says, well, all I have to know is the Bible and I know everything I need to know? Or said another way, all I have to know is the Bible and I don't have to learn or grow or try or become. Well, then you missed the point entirely. What he's talking about here is an awakening. You could literally think of it as a new birth. In fact, you could be so bold as to say it's being born again. This is the new birth. This is the psychological birth of you back to spirit from self. And I love the line he says in there, which is, what if heaven, it's you arising from the deadness of your own apathy? It's a call out to all of us, because all of us on some level are that way. So what's the opposite? Well, that would be to prophesize, to become the inspiration. For St. Francis, one of my favorite quotes of all time, tells us to preach the gospel at all times and, when necessary, to use words. And that's good for me, because I don't want to go out and talk about it. I'd much rather go out and live it. It's easier. So we got to take our image off the throne, because that way God can get back on it. And the reality is, I can tell you this, Christian, non-Christian, doesn't matter. If you don't take yourself off the throne, the world will consume you, and it will leave you lost. Many of us are mature adults, and our minds are still in charge of us. No more. No more. It's our choice. We choose to take it back. Because you can only give away what you have. What's inside of you can't help but leak out. So a Buddhist monk is telling a story. He says, you're walking through a coffee shop with a cup of coffee, and someone bumps into you, and you spill your coffee. Why did you spill your coffee? Why'd you spill your coffee? Jesse, why'd you spill your coffee? Somebody bumped into you, right? Doesn't that sound reasonable? No. You spilled your coffee because you had coffee in your cup. And if you had anger in your cup, or hate, or worry, those would have spilled out equally well. Likewise, you have an opportunity to fill your cup with joy, and wisdom, and peace, and those will spill out as well. So it does not matter that someone bumped into you, because life is bumping into people. What matters is what's in your cup. So what's in your cup? If you don't know, this process gets you to know. And if you see what's actually in there, you're probably going to improve what's in there just by seeing it. Because remember, understanding is a way more powerful way to change than force. So we win both ways in this process. We have an easier, faster way to change, and it pays bigger dividends across both spectrums. Our highest calling is not to a building or a dogma. Our highest calling is to live in ways that others want. So others are inspired, because great inner light can't help but brighten everything around it. The great command: to love others as you love yourself. To love yourself is to know yourself. Your real self. Not the ego self, not the made-up self, your real self. Your spirit self. The divinity within you. This is the answer. This is the way forward. This is necessary. It's our duty. And not just as Christians, it's our duty as human beings to live this way. It's the highest calling we can have. Self-actualization is not the highest calling as I drove home. Self-transcendence is. Because the harvest is plentiful. Look around you in the world. There's opportunities at every doorstep. The harvest is plentiful. But the laborers are few. Aldous Huxley once said, "I wanted to change the world, but I found the only thing I can be sure of changing is myself." True that. Now, this process of awakening that I'm encouraging you to all continue to your mindfulness practices. This process is not something to be done separate. I often hear people say, well, if I went to a monastery, I could become awakened. You could, but you don't need to. In fact, I'd argue you'd be better off not to go there, but to practice in our current space. Why? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. One is that this is not something to be done separate from the world. And the real reason is because a real-life approach yields better dividends and faster returns. I mean, the world's going to be your classroom. Just go drive on the road for 10 minutes. You know, you're going to have an opportunity to be irritated at somebody. The world's your classroom, because every negative feeling and every adversity is a lesson. So stay in the world. Stay active. Live your life as you've been living it. No one's asking you to change it. We're just asking you to be present differently within it. Because being active in the world is where service happens. We can shine where the battle rages. We can stand in the gap for peace, love, and joy. For true greatness lies with all those who are mindfully awakening and transcending themselves. Life becomes a living prayer. This is the final and highest outcome of being. Religions across the world, art, philosophy, sociology, psychology, every major branch of human endeavor, taken all the way to the end, ends up exactly at this point. And we've known about it for 5,000 years. And yet, no matter how many preachers and saviors and prophets and poets come, we somehow don't remember it. Well, we're in a place unique in society today, where many of our needs are met, and food's available, and shelter's present, and we can lean into this in a way that's never been leaned into before. And that's your opportunity. That's why this is so timely, because your life is your practice in the world today. And here you can do things from love, not for it. Do things without worrying about the outcome. Continually asking yourself, what would love do now? Or as Thich Nhat Hanh once said, walk as if you're kissing the earth with your feet. I love that. Walk alive, walk aware, walk from the heart. Awakening is a sacred act. Whoa, Russ, you kind of went far there. You're talking about a process. Awakening is a sacred act. It is the ultimate achievement of our humanness to transcend our ego, to get our thoughts behind us, and to walk only for good. I didn't say for my good. It's for good, whatever good forms in, around us. And here we move from achieving and accumulating to moving in spirit. Here we learn to follow that small, still voice. And we're sensitive to the next nudge, that next calling. And this is really important, this next part. We stop doing things because they're going to be worth it. We find our dance, our song, and the tug of our soul, and we pursue it. and we're open to whatever happens, allowing the process of life to carry us, not needing a specific outcome. So this is interesting. I thought of this the other day. I wanted to share it with the group. This is the world we live in, the world of self-actualization, the world of the book that I published and thousands of other books you'll see anywhere you go down the self-help aisle. In self-actualization, they tell you a couple things. They tell you to visualize, to plan, to do or execute, and then to achieve, right? Is this right? Peter, is this right? Excellent. Right. But the work we're talking about is different than this work. This work is totally different. And people don't realize it. Here you have a leading. And if you want to put a knowing here, I totally get it, because there is something that goes beyond intellect when you do this work. You have a knowing. And that knowing leads you to do something. And that doing, you release the outcome, but you discover more about yourself, the world, and your spirit walk. So the world, self-actualization, and this is why Maslow was so frustrated, because these are very different paths. They almost are not compatible. The world, self-actualization, does this. And this is all about whom? Me. So this is all what? Ego-based, right? Right? But what's the other one? The other one is self-transcendence. So this is self-transcendence. I got to come up with a shorter word. Here we go from leading to doing to releasing to discovering. And this is a soul walk or a spirit walk. Does anything come up for anyone when they see that? This is really counterintuitive. If you've been raised in the world, this is what you've taught to do. And now we're saying, no. If you want to go the last step, you have to flip this around a little bit. You have to do for doing's sake, because you're walking in good or in love. And this is exactly the reason so few worldly successful people will ever end up doing this work. Isn't that interesting? Because once you've mastered this plan, you know it, and I always find myself leaning back into this approach, it's very hard to switch over. And they miss out on one of the greatest gifts of life. This walk right here in the green line, this is the narrow gate. This is the narrow path. Do not walk as the world walks, but walk as I have taught you to walk. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Matthew 7:13. Next week, we embark on something rather different, a complement of this, but different in the sense that it's going to be a series of provocative mindfulness experiments. The next 2 sessions are going to shake you awake. They're going to provoke you, they're going to give you aha moments, they're going to make you think about the world differently, and they're going to catch you in your own stuff, and I know you're going to find it valuable. I appreciate you. I thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you.